So in Abbotsford, we're kind of like Abbotsford's Empire State Building. We're the tallest by 10 stories. So it's a very landmark building. The who's who of Abbotsford lives in the building, so it has shows very good pride of ownership.
In this video, you'll meet Derek Peever, who's the co-owner and marketing manager of Mahogany Platinum in Abbotsford, BC. And in this video, you'll hear about why it's great for people who are looking for more independence in these retirement years. You'll also hear about features of the brand new building in Abbotsford, including the views. And you'll also hear about why it's great for people who are looking for a more luxurious option for this part of their life. So why don't you start by telling us 3 things that you love about your job?
3 things that I love about my job is that we get to deal with amazing properties. So, really nice new construction with resort style amenities and amazing views, and it's stuff that we're really proud of. So we have a jewel in the crown policy for our properties. It's got to be something we can brag about, and so I really love dealing with really nice real estate. I love dealing with, the type of clientele that we deal with in our rental properties is very pleasant, and, landlording can be a tough business, but, we really like dealing in higher end properties with high quality people. And the other thing I love about my job, I guess right now, is that I get to work from home a lot. So I've got a little baby, 1.5, and another one on the way. So it gives me bit more time to spend with them.
And what drew you to this line of work, this field, and working as a landlord, as you say, but also specifically with retirement living?
Yeah, so my story, I started off very small, just investing in a tiny condo in Agassiz, BC in 2006 for $65,000, and started renovating places and got into different strategies like furnished rentals and things. And I was educating myself, reading books, going to real estate meetups, and started learning about seniors housing and the big demographic and the need that was coming. And I actually did a research project on seniors housing where I got to interview some really cool people like Brent Binions from Chartwell, the vice president. And I did a presentation at my real estate meetup group about seniors housing. So I started off just as a student and a researcher, and eventually had the opportunity to do a deal with our favorite developer in Abbotsford.
Is Mahogany Platinum your first retirement residence, or are there others in the network?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I like to think we have the benefit of coming in not necessarily knowing how it's supposed to be done. We did a lot of research, obviously, so we're not going in blind, but we like to kind of come in and do things a little bit differently and have some fresh ideas. And I think what we're doing at Mahogany is very unique anywhere in Canada, from what I know.
And how is that? How is it unique?
Well, it's very unique in the sense that it's a cutting edge new mixed use building. So the building itself is very cool. It's the tallest building in BC outside of Metro Vancouver. So in Abbotsford, we're kind of like Abbotsford's Empire State Building. We're the tallest by 10 stories. So it's a very landmark building. The who's who of Abbotsford lives in the building. So it shows very good pride of ownership. There's a lot of owner occupiers that bought their condos to live in the higher floors. And then our units are from the 5th to the 10th floor. So it's kind of in a lower part of the building where you don't feel so scared of heights. You're right in the trees and with the lake view. And it's actually my favorite view in the building is that 5th to 10th floor, because all the surrounding buildings are 2 stories. So the location is amazing. It's right on Mill Lake Park, which is, I like to say, like Abbotsford's Stanley Park, what Stanley Park is to Vancouver. It's like the jewel in the heart of the city. So it's got 4 main entrances with water parks and promenade around the lake, outdoor fitness, all kinds of cool stuff. The view is spectacular because, like I mentioned, it's 2nd floor, everybody surrounding us. So it's unobstructed mountain views, lake views. You can see Mount Baker, which is actually a volcano off in the distance in the US. You get a lot of mountains to the north, Whitecaps beyond Mission. And you can see all the way to Grouse Mountain if you're familiar with the area. So you can see all the way to Vancouver from the upper floors in the building. So what else makes us unique is that it's not your typical independent living where people, the saying in the books is, being put out to pasture, out to the babbling brook. It's very much a active building. Like we actually have some furnished corporate rentals mixed in with the seniors housing. So what we do there is if somebody's had a flood or fire in their home, or it's a new doctor being hired at the hospital, which we're right on the doorstep of the hospital. That's a big bonus, is that we're instant access to the hospital. But it's a bit more lively. You have kids, families mixing in. It doesn't kind of feel stagnant with always seeing the same people. So, and we have resort style amenities, which is great, and a brand new facility can afford those things like the pool and the gym, which unfortunately right now have some restrictions with the pandemic, but hopefully those will be lifted. So that's a bit about what makes us unique.
In your experience so far, what has been the benefit of having your residents in that kind of community where they're not the only ones? There are others coming in and out, others that are younger, their families, younger children, working professionals. What does that do to the lifestyle, the culture of your residents?
Yeah, so we've actually rebranded a bit to be resort style retirement suites as opposed to active independent living, because the type of clientele we're attracting really just, they want to still be in the game, and they want to be in the mix, and they just want the convenience of not having to do housekeeping. Janae, who's our director of client experience, she's on site, so she really makes it feel like more of a warm, welcoming community rather than just moving into a luxury rental. That's kind of just a cold, you're just a number in the building kind of feel. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit more lively, and also has that warm feeling that Janae provides them.
How does it work in terms of keeping the community feeling like a community of your residents? Are there shared spaces? Are there, you mentioned a gym, are there other activities that they all take part in? And then Janae, how does she factor into that?
The building itself is called Mahogany at Mill Lake, and our residents on the 5th to 10th floor are called Mahogany Platinum residents. So it indicates an elevated level of service. So we have actually a commercial unit as well on the main floor, which we call the Platinum Lounge. And that's where it's exclusively for our residents, in addition to the resort style amenities that everybody has access to. Amazing outdoor space, complimentary commercial like pharmacy, cardiologist, bistro, delicious meal provider there. But Janae is their business hours in the Platinum Lounge. So that's kind of where they tend to drop in, and she gets to know them, right? What their likes are, what their dislikes are, what makes them tick, how they want to be notified, what's important to them. And those little touches, meal programs, customized meal programs, just that whole white glove executive kind of assistance if they have Wi-Fi issues or whatever. And Janae's kind of like a daughter to a lot of them.
Or to borrow a phrase from hospitality, like a concierge.
Yeah, we call her the director of client experience, but most people would know it as a concierge that does a lot of extra things too.
And does that include arranging outings or giving them ideas for programs to participate in?
Absolutely. So there's community events, a little bit limited with this current situation, but definitely, with physical distancing, getting together for Thanksgiving, Christmas, they have, she'll slide bingo numbers under all of their doors, just to kind of stay connected and play games and stuff like that. There's a movie theater, and, they do puzzles and all kinds of fun stuff. And they go off-site as well. Like they'll all go out for dinner to get Italian one night, or people sign up for those extra activities.
And you mentioned food, the bistro. What is the menu like, and how is it put together?
Yeah, so that's been interesting for us, is that actually a lot of our seniors don't necessarily get their meal program from the on-site provider. a lot of them order in, more like potatoes and, typical like Thanksgiving type meals, more hearty meals, whereas the bistro's a little bit more on the expensive side. Maybe you go there once or twice a week, get a breakfast. He has some good specials that go on. So it's convenient to have it on site. But as far as your, 3, 4, 5 meals a week provider, we have a few preferred providers, and they deliver weekly typically to the Platinum Lounge. And then Janae oversees, getting everybody their meals into their freezers and stuff for the week.
And is that included in their rental costs?
That is the one thing that the seniors will pay extra for is the meal plan, unless they're on a promotion. Like a lot of our seniors signed up with free year meals. So some of them, we had different promotions during our lease up phase, and that was one of them. But typically, they're going to be paying on their own for that over and above. A lot of our seniors, they have full kitchens, with gas ranges and the whole nine. So that's, they can have the option to cook at home or opt for that. But other than the meals, it is an all-inclusive, because I'm not one for nickel and diming. It's turnkey utility package, it's housekeeping's included, parking, storage, like the whole nine is included in the rent.
And in terms of the care levels that you offer, are you having people moving into your suites that are still completely active, still completely independent?
Correct. So we don't do meals, meds, and bathing. We're not assisted living. We've actually had a few people move out of, your typical seniors housing back into a product like Mahogany because they want even more independence and freedom. So we're basically a high-end luxury rental that caters to the senior demographic.
And so when you're fielding inquiries, people who are looking at their options, wanting to downsize perhaps, and seeing what's out there, is it for you, the people that are coming to you, is it primarily the individuals looking for themselves, or is it also families looking for a loved one?
Families as well. Like I read a great book when I was doing my research called The Future of Seniors Housing by Kate Manser. And I learned that it's typically the eldest daughter within, certain 10 square miles of the residence, those kind of things. But I'd say it's probably been 60, 70% people themselves. And then the other would be family, maybe a nephew or a daughter or, that kind of thing that's inquiring hand in hand with them.
Mm. And for both families and the individuals who are looking at their options, for those who do eventually choose Mahogany, what is the selling point? What's the biggest feature that makes them convinced that this is the place for them?
Sure. Well, I would say Janae pointed out too, when I talked to her prepping for this, it's important to plan in advance and, come by for a tour and check out your options well before there's some sort of an emergency situation or a significant medical event where the senior has to, needs these extra things. Like, for example, we do a lot of aging in place renovations, aging in place technologies, and we customize that for the tenant with a long-term lease. So the biggest selling feature really is Janae, and she's just amazing person and does a great job with the seniors. So that's key. Happy staff first, and then happy residents, right? And the other thing would really be the real estate. We're in the best new building in the city, hands down. Amazing views, inspiring, breathtaking views where you could wake up and just see a layer of fog and mountains, and it's really incredible. Just the ease of it, we make it super easy, turnkey utilities, housekeeping service. Just allow them to really focus on the things they love to do, and not all the minutia that goes with home ownership and typical rental properties, dealing with utility companies and all these kind of nightmares. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say the customer service, number one, the actual property, number two, and then our all-inclusive offering, I think is very good value. We're not the cheapest in town, but when you add up all the value that you get and what it would cost to rent an unfurnished, market rental, I think people see the value in that.
And how do you make sure that your residents are taking part in everything that you offer? You're making sure that they feel like they are able to take advantage of everything that that comes with the package.
Yeah, I know that not everybody comes to those things. Like there's a few holdouts and stuff that, maybe just are not into that, and that's totally fine. Like we're not trying to force everybody to come to all the events. But Janae does a really good job, I think, just engaging them, getting them out of their comfort zone and getting them to get involved with things that they're doing. That's definitely the type of resident we love to have is people that are engaged. And, she just did a post the other day with a lady that gives away 100 or more shoe boxes, little gift packages to charity every Christmas since 1993. And like those are the kind of residents that we have there. They're fairly well off and they're give back to the community.
If there's a memory of a resident that you've met through Mahogany that stands out in your mind.
A Mahogany resident that stands out in my mind would probably be our very first client, who's a dear friend of mine. Like that's the way it is in a small town like Abbotsford. Is like some of the owners' parents live in the building. Dave Croker and Irene Croker were actually amazing people that I met like 10 years ago when I was coming up as a real estate investor, and they saw promise in me, and they actually owner financed a condo to me. So instead of me needing a mortgage from a bank, Dave and Irene Croker were the bank for me. So they were actually my lender for many years, and now they're staying at Mahogany with me. So it's like full circle, and just great people. They're very involved in the church, and they travel and go on, missions and do amazing things. So they're kind of the number one resident, and a long-term relationship of mine that comes to mind that I appreciate a lot.
And when you look ahead at the next 5 or 10 years, are there any changes or additions or any areas that you would like to see grow?
Definitely. I think with the downturn in the housing market in BC in like late 2018, 2019, and then this whole pandemic, it's been a tough time for seniors housing and housing in general. It's a scary time to sell your house and go into a luxury rental. So I think we're all hoping that, and it has been, the housing market's been improving. Just hope that we can put the current pandemic and stuff behind us, continue with best practices, and have that fear lifted so that people feel it's time to make a jump to a product like this.
But in terms of the building, in terms of the programs that you offer, are there any ideas for things that you see your residents asking for that you'd like to meet and add to what you currently offer?
Absolutely. So I just sent an email this morning with ideas for the design of the new Platinum Lounge, because we're looking at duplicating this model. Hopefully in Burquitlam will be the next one, which is Burnaby and Coquitlam, right on the border. And some simple suggestions, like having the director of client experience have a separate office, so she can get a little bit of work done in privacy, but still be present. There was ideas like having more of a hotel style breakfast bar arrangement, so we could still do some meals. Like we actually had it thinking that we would have all the meals next door in the bistro and not really need dining space, but it would be nice to have our own more formal dining space there for our residents. Right now, currently, the Platinum Lounge doesn't have direct outdoor access. Like we do have outdoor space off of the main amenities room and the gym, but we're hoping on the next one we'll actually have our own private outdoor space. So those are a few things that come to mind to improve. Always learning and improving, right? And taking the feedback and doing new construction. There's a lot of things we can do built in next time, as opposed to adding the certified grab bars after construction. So yeah, we're learning a lot, on your first deal at anything, even though we did a ton of research. Once you get in and get your hands dirty, you really learn what to do a little different next time.
Mm-hmm. And those who are with you now, is there a trait that unites them together in your perspective? Is it that they're from the area, they would like to stay local, they're just looking for a change? Or is it also a destination for people outside of the area who are looking more for a specific feature or element of Mahogany Platinum that you offer?
It's a good question. I think my first feeling on that is we pull from a fairly broad area. Like we've had people move back from the Sunshine Coast that maybe lived in Langley years ago, and now they're willing to be in Abbotsford because their family's all in the Fraser Valley. We've had people come back from the island, Vancouver Island. There's quite a few local people, so I think it's fairly broad. I think it's that luxury, active independent living hybrid kind of between just an age restricted building and an actual independent living that people are looking for. It's the main trend of downsizers and people moving off the farm, moving into condos, and they want easy and they want good value for their money, but they can afford it. Um, yeah, that's typically, and the stats say that it's typically the woman that you could expect to move in, right? And in our case, it's actually been a lot of probably a little bit more men than women, which I found a little interesting. But yeah, that's been my experience so far.
And what's your advice for those who are in the middle of their search now, or maybe just beginning to look at their options?
I would say do like I did when I was doing my research and go out and tour them. I toured most of the independent living buildings that I thought would be comparable when I was doing my research, and just kind of, get a feel for the culture and, how you feel they eat, and come tour Mahogany. Go out and tour them all and see who you connect with and, what grabs your eye in advance.